Yo, everybody, OCD Mikey, Hi-Fi Guy here. And now that I've got you all here listening, we can get to the bottom of this, okay? We can really get to the bottom of this analog versus digital thing that you think I'm talking about, okay? Because you guys hammer at it so much, I'm going to address it. Okay? Because that's not at all what I was saying with those other videos. I'm not comparing analog and digital. What I was doing is looking through the eyes of a person new to hi-fi. And I was telling them in 2022, if you're starting this hobby, you can forget about vinyl. You don't need it. Okay? That is my point. You have to understand my whole aim for coming here is to gain new people and bring new people into hi-fi. And I'm talking about the younger guys, bringing them into hi-fi, or the older guys that are still doing this and are fed up and would really like to get some relief before they pass. Stop chasing their tail like they've been doing for the last 50 years, okay? So I'm here to bring in new people. I'm looking through the lenses of a newbie, and I'm telling people analog or vinyl is not necessary in 2022, okay? Now, let's start from the beginning and let's really get into the gut of this because clearly people want to talk about it. I've got 500 comments on that video, so clearly you guys want a discussion regarding this, okay? First of all, the first most important thing for us to understand here is nothing rivals the live performance, okay? There is nothing that we do with playback that is anywhere near the level of intensity of the live event. There is nothing that can recreate being in the same room with another human that is improvising an art right in front of your eyes. That is creation. That is godlike, okay? That is absolute creation happening in front of your very eyes, and you can feel that energy. You cannot replace that with any kind of recorded medium. So what we do is a half-ass attempt at trying to bring that back into our homes with a past event that has happened, and we're trying to capture some of the magic that happened in the original event in our homes. So it's a half-ass of the live music. Let's get that together first. So A, the first highest quality, the most sublime experience you can have with music is the live event, period. Everything else pales, okay? So now that we got that out of the way, now we're going to talk about the paling reproduction or the playback of those times, those events, okay? There's one constant that is absolutely for sure about every recording, whether it's digital, whether it's analog, it doesn't matter. It completely depends on the talent of the recording engineers, the miking, the tracking engineers, first of all, then the mixing engineers, then the mastering engineers. There's 3 different engineers, and their talent and their know-how and how they feel and how they know the music should feel is how that product is going to turn out, okay? So to think that there is even a frickin' possibility of an argument of digital versus analog is absolutely a ridiculous thought. You absolutely could never have that argument. There are way too many variables, absolutely way too many variables, and I'll go through why. First of all, the engineers, how it's engineered, how it starts with the microphones. What microphones are you using? If you're using shitty microphones, you're going to use a Shure SM57 to go ahead and do a vocal. It's going to come a lot different than if you use a Neumann U87 or U57 or some vintage German tube mic or whatever. And then you go into your output, your recording gear, you go into a mic pre. You know, you could use a freaking $500 mic pre, or you could use a $5,000 mic pre. Do you think the sound off that microphone is going to sound different? It's going to totally sound different. So you could be using a crappy mic or a good mic. The engineer could be miking your drum kit correctly or horribly, or miking the piano with 1 mic or 3 mics. There's so many different variables that it's absolutely ridiculous to try and think in terms of digital versus analog. It's ridiculous. There is no possible way you could compare the two in an absolute way like that. Too many variables. So first of all, we talk about the engineers. That is where the rubber meets the road with the playback, with the recordings, okay? Then you must realize the time period. We're talking about a time scope from when they started recording music, which was, I don't even know, with those little lacquer, little cylinder things. So for the ease of just, I'm going to say 1930s, okay? Just to, I know it was before then, but let's say 1930s to 2022, we've been recording music, okay? So analog was the only thing we could record with at the beginning. So there was no choice. There was no digital. It was analog, okay? By the time it got to tape, okay, tape was the medium that you recorded in. Everything was recorded on magnetic tape, okay? When digital first came on the scene, digital sucked. It was absolutely horrible sounding. It was thin and tinny and nasty and gross, and it was riddled with artifacts, and it was disgusting, man. There was no way when digital first came out you could ever even hint that digital was better than analog. From a sonic standpoint, from a portability, from a convenience, from a lack of generational degradation, clearly the implication was there that digital could be a better format in many ways, but the sound sucked. It was always preferable to use your killer mics, have it set up killer, do killer tracking, and track to 24 tracks on 2-inch tape. Okay, I mean, obviously. And back in the day, there was a time when you didn't want the DDD stuff, right? Remember the CDs? DDD, you were like, no, those were the latest technology, but they always sucked. The analog, and look, we can get into this whole discussion ad nauseum, okay? I mean, seriously, we can go into, you can't even argue that DDD wasn't as good as ADD or AAD or whatever. Because again, it boils back to what recording gear did you use, who mic'd everything, who did the tracking, who did the mixing, and who did the final mastering, okay? And so it's just such a futile argument that for you guys to come on and try and tell me that analog's better or try and tell me that digital's better, you just can't do that, okay? Also realize that when analog was in the heyday of analog and making tapes, you also had to think about the outboard tube gear and so forth that guys use. There's what's called outboard gear. Okay, so you have your recording machine, your tape deck, you're recording, you're tracking the bands, and you have outboard gear, which means you have tube limiters, tube compressors, you've got a Neve console, you've got an SSL, you've got whatever you have, all those things, the cable, everything, your power supplies, how close your power supply is to your tube limiter. Did you move it away? Do you have it in a mu metal case or not? All of these things can affect the recording, okay? So the real killer dude, they would use Neve boards, they would use all this tube outboard gear and have some super fat killer analog stuff. Those were the things that you guys are talking about, that the analog junkies love. Those albums were the bomb, okay? I love albums too. They have the album art, they're super cool, okay? That has been superseded. We're in 2022 right now, okay? And again, I'm looking through the lenses of a newbie coming into this hobby. Too much bullshit out there. And in my previous videos, I was trying to say that it's bullshit that you need record albums. You don't need them. They're not necessary, okay? In 2022, the technology with a DAC, like the one that I use and I talk about, which is Playback Designs, there has been a huge breakthrough in digital quality. It's not the same that it used to be. It's completely different. This is a deal changer, the Playback Designs. This is something different. It hits every chord like analog does in the playback, okay? So I'm coming from a certain angle, and I am trying to let people know, the new people coming into this, that you don't need to buy a turntable. You don't need to get all these collection of vinyl and start collecting all this vinyl. You just don't need to do it anymore, okay? If you want to, that's something completely different. That's fine, do it. But I'm just saying it's not necessary, because when you come into hi-fi, and if you're following the forums and you're going online and you're reading, you'll quickly find the guys that are at the top, if you will, or who consider themselves at the top of the game, are these guys with these $300,000 turntable systems, okay? That used to be the top of the industry. In 2022, there are DACs that do better and that do as well. Prime example, before I took on Playback Designs, I know a dealer, tell me about this MPD8 thing, you know, how good is it? What do you think? He said, Mike, he thought for a second, and he goes, let me put it this way, it's better than my Kronos rig. Okay, so he's got a $150,000 turntable rig, Kronos, which many of you have heard about. It's, you know, I don't know anything about Kronos. All I know is that it's the shit, and it's really good. I talk to people about Kronos. When I mention this, I tell this story. Jeff said to me, you know what? The MPD8 sounds better than my Kronos rig. At that point, I swore off vinyl for sure. I had talked to other vinyl guys and stuff, but that's my own personal journey, okay? That doesn't mean anything to you guys. I'm just sharing my own personal journey. At that point, I realized if the MPD8 is better than a $150,000 Kronos rig, I don't need any vinyl, okay? And then I tell people this story, and they tell me Kronos isn't even that great. I mean, I've got other people, and I don't know which turntables beat Kronos because once they tell me they start going into what's better, it goes in one ear and out the other, honestly, because I don't need to retain this stuff. I'm not suggesting anybody, and I don't plan to ever consult on turntables because it's not the Mikey way of building a rig. When people come to me, they get the Mikey way. The Mikey way is no turntable, no analog. Even though I have tape, I don't think it's necessary, and I'm not going to recommend it to my clients. So 0 analog. I just don't recommend that as a way to get to nirvana, okay? It can be fun and nostalgic and great to collect albums, and it's fun to shop for records, okay? So if you want that facet, that's fine. Do it. It's just simply not necessary. I'm trying to get people past that line and not just create something fun like antique collecting or whatever. I'm trying to get them across the line where it's very efficient to listen to music. And taking a tablet and flipping through, seeing all the album art. I can see the album art on my 110-inch high-def screen here and look at all the album art in 4K. I can see the lyrics of the songs roll up as the music is playing, so I can get the lyrics. With the swipe of my finger, I can see what the journalists are saying about that album, so I can get a complete, a review about what the band was doing at that time, what this record represents, all this kind of stuff. So the comprehensive experience from liner notes is not lost with digital. Second of all, you don't need the internet. So a lot of you guys don't understand this. They say, well, you own your albums, but you don't own when you stream. I stream from my own collection, okay? You must understand, I had 3,000 CDs that I took and had them ripped to digital files, and then they're on a hard drive. So I stream back my own CD rips at CD quality. Okay. DSD is a single bit process for both recording and decoding, okay? So there are much different problems associated with single bit versus multi-bit. Multi-bit has a ton more non-linearities than single bit does, and multi-bit, in my opinion, does not sound the same way that DSD does in single bit. Single bit architecture is the only thing I've heard that gets close to analog tape or analog vinyl, okay? PCM doesn't do it. Everything PCM is just there's something in it. I hear artifacts, and even if I don't frickin' hear it, I feel it. I pick it up. My body, my brain triggers on it, and I get fatigued from it. DSD, not that way. Everything that goes into the playback becomes DSD, and it's converted at single bit. So back in the day, you'd make your master tape. It was analog. It was beautiful. If you had a good tracking engineer, good mixing engineer, you got a great 2-channel dump, and you would play it back, and it sounded sublime. Then you had to take that master and dump it to vinyl, or you had to make a lacquer master for creating the vinyl records. When you made that lacquer master, you were taking a hit. It was a degradation. Everybody knows that. Ask any engineer. It was a hit to put it to that lacquer master. You had to do some very creative things to keep that good, and that's where you really needed the engineers to make that final mastering and that final process good for the master for the vinyls, okay? And if you did well in that process, you'd get a killer album. If you didn't do well, you'd get a crappy album, okay? So all those things are so variable. Again, there's absolutely no way that we can make a digital versus vinyl argument because the first digital was horrible. So analog kicked its ass all the time, no matter what. Even a record would kick original digital's ass because it was horrible. There's so much advancement has happened in DAC technology, in microchip technology, in material science, that now the DACs are a completely different bird than they were back in the 1980s, man. I mean, the DACs now are stunning. So the playback designs, yeah, I'm going to go back to that DAC because it's my reference. It's the one that I think represents the equal to analog. And in many ways, I consider it better not by a sound standpoint, but just by a format standpoint. And an ease of use and a comprehensive efficiency of playback that is unrivaled. You can't rival that with analog equals. Okay, so the playback designs was invented and is created by the guy who invented sample rate conversion. Okay, so let me, and each time I talk to you guys, I peel back another layer. Okay, Andreas Koch invented sample rate conversion. So not only did he invent DSD for Sony, okay, and single bit, but he invented sample rate conversion. He's on the 1984 patent, Andreas Koch, for sample rate conversion. So the guy who invented digital music makes this DAC, okay? His first job was for Studer of Switzerland to create their first Studer. Do you know what a Studer is? I've got one sitting right over there, an A80, okay? This thing came out of a Hollywood recording studio, Sunset Sound. I've still got the sticker on the back. I bought this thing and it had 900 hours on it, something really low. I put flux magnetic heads on it, direct outputs, wire outputs off the head, where I have a switch. I can go to onboard electronics, to outboard electronics. So trust me, okay, I've been down the rabbit hole. I've hit the bottom. I've rooted around in there, and I've come back. That's why I have the attitude that I have, is because I've been far beyond what most people have been in hi-fi. And the guys that understand me are the guys that have also been down the rabbit hole, been there, hit the wall, and come back and realized I don't need half the shit that I thought I did. My mind tweaked out on all this things that I thought were necessary that are not necessary. Like cables. I sell cables. I make cables. Are they necessary for you to have them in your rig? No. The killer cables? No, they're not necessary. Do they make a difference? Absolutely. Okay, so they're not necessary and they do make a difference. Maybe you can compare that analog. Analog, at one point, you needed analog because the digital was so bad. At this point in 2022, you don't need analog whatsoever. You can have it and you can try and you can play with it, but just keep in mind it's the most expensive part of the hobby, and your turntables will sound hugely different. The cartridges will sound greatly different. People that are into this have little drawers that they pull out that have 15 cartridges lined up, and they play different cartridges depending on the pressing and what, what all this stuff. Look at, so it's if you want to get it, and these cartridges can be $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. And if you accidentally drop it or you accidentally move it a little too hard, you can bust off that needle, break the needle off. Great, now you got to send it back in and have the stylus put back on. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that there's no way I'm going to go there. There's no way, dude. I still want to do other things. I wanted to make this video to let you guys know there is no way. If you think I was trying to say that digital or analog is better, you are totally underestimating my knowledge and my experience in this industry. There's absolutely no way you can make that argument, period. There are way too many variables. Variables in the playback equipment, variables in the engineering, microphones, which outboard gear, what console was used, how high was the guy who was mixing it. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many variables that it is absolutely, literally impossible to have the argument between digital and analog. So please, give it up. I know it is a big thing that people love to keep stoking the fire, but it's like, man, it's political. It's absolutely BS, and it really doesn't matter. The bottom line is, how good does the recording sound and how close is it to a live event? Because really, all we are is punk-ass bitches trying to recreate the live event, okay? So, me included. Okay, so when I'm throwing these names out here for all these people that get all sensitive about the names, calling people caveman and all this shit, I told you I'm another jackass with an opinion. I'm nobody. Don't you think I'm a caveman? Look at my freaking ponytail. I don't even cut my hair. I'm a damn caveman. Hoo, hoo. I even made the sound. Okay? So I'm making this fun and entertaining, and yeah, I'm gonna call names, I'm gonna make fun, I'm gonna be cynical, I'm gonna be jaded, because I've been down the rabbit hole. I've rooted around looking for gold down there, and I didn't find any. I got to the end of it, right all the way to where I bought original recordings from a studio out of the vault. Okay, and I have the best recorder made, one of the best recorders ever made in history, and I've pimped it out and hot rodded it out for outboard gear. I've gone all the way, man. I've taken it all the way. I skipped vinyl, okay? Because to me, vinyl is for a different purpose. Vinyl was for collecting, okay? And I don't want to start a collection. I wanted to get to the bottom of where did vinyl come from? Oh, vinyl came from a tape master? Okay, let's go straight to the tape masters. That's why I did that. But it's all moot because I don't even recommend analog for people. I recommend an all digital gear using 2022 technology. Stuff made in the USA. One person that invented sample rate conversion. There's one person that developed DSD. And DSD is the only thing, in my opinion, right? And I'm just another jackass, remember, with another opinion, like everybody. I'm nobody, okay? I don't know my head from a ass. I'm lucky I can wipe my ass. How about that, okay? But I know what music sounds good, and I know what DAC sounds like no other. And that's what I am talking about with this, with the 2022 technology. Analog is not needed, and it's an extremely expensive, painstaking liability part of what we do, okay? I have a bunch of it. I have a bunch of tape. Do I recommend it to anybody? Not in a million years, okay? Just wanted to make that clear, okay? See you.
And so Mike